So someone linked me this video in Discord, and I'm not sure what this is about, but I normally trust Quasi's content, so I'm curious about it. Also, as someone who does still play a ton of Final Fantasy, as in daily, I log in daily, I do my dailies, I do other type of content that isn't just roulettes, and I'm still not running out of content. I was and have been playing a big game of like catch up when I started playing sometime last week, not last week, last year. Like in May or June, I still have some jobs to level up to level 90. My crafters are not all on 90 yet. There's a ton of side quests and achievements that I haven't done yet, and I'm still finding a lot of things to do. Now, it could be that I'm playing the game a little less than an average gamer with a lot of time. And even though I do make content, I also have a small child, and that just takes away a lot of time. I have been creating content full time for a few months now, and I do this during my working hours. But it's still not something that I would call a gaming session that is longer than anyone else's in any way. If anything, I spend less time playing and more time just kind of, putting things together and trying to, just survive off of it. But I just kind of want to see, maybe this is like some sort of banter that happened within the chat or whatever. So I just want to see what happened and hear all right there, the scandal, if any.
Hey folks, this will be a spicy video. Today we're talking about haters. Now, for the longest time, I've been covering Final Fantasy XIV on YouTube. Naturally, in the YouTube comments, there will always be haters. But a certain common voice is getting louder and louder. I'm starting to see more and more hateful comments about how there's no content in Final Fantasy XIV.
What is this? The game. Oh, can't see. The more money and popularity, the less content we seem to get. Unstoppable success, really. Last I checked, many people have quit. Obviously, this is going to happen, but there isn't even any real queues anymore after a new patch and Beast Tribe. Yeah, it is going well, but how many people are actually paying subscribers? That is all that matters. The number is meaningless if they don't get money. If you want to go by total players, then it doesn't compare to ESO, Star Wars, and Wars 2 that are 100% free as long as you buy expansions. There's no subscription fee unless you get premium, which doesn't do much other than free access to expansion. Content comes out, we blow through it so fast, and then there's nothing to do. Content should take time to go through, so developers have time to work on new content as well. Players have something to work on and work towards. Jesus, like, people are never happy. People are like, when World of Warcraft was doing these breadcrumb quests that would have you log in every week to do like a 5-minute Covenant campaign quest or whatever, people were livid. People were like, oh, they're not giving us enough content to do at our own pace. If I want to be able to play the entire Covenant campaign in 2 days. And now, when in Final Fantasy, everything is available. Not everything is really available. Like, the Beast Tribes do make you log in daily. You can't do Beast Tribes all at once. But some things that come out, like, I don't know, let's say the new Omega questline or Tatara questline or whatever, yeah, you sit and you play through it. But there's also a lot of reading to do, a lot of exploration to do. Like, how fast do you want to finish your content if you're done within like a day and suddenly you have nothing to do? Like, if you don't want to be playing the game, you shouldn't be paying it in the first place. Instead of paying for it and complaining how there's nothing to do while you don't want to level the rest of your jobs, you don't want to do all the side quests, which I bet that these people haven't even touched. If you don't want to raid, if you don't want to achievement hunt or mount hunt, if you don't want to do any of this stuff, then maybe you should be playing other games and just logging in or paying for like a month when there's a ton of new content, like a new expansion. And that is also totally fine. Right now, a lot of people who are playing are dedicated players who want to have their characters complete, who are grinding something, or maybe, I don't know, sprouts who haven't actually started paying for the game just yet. Like, there are many examples when where people are still playing the game, and regardless of the fact whether they're paying or not, there is such an overwhelming amount of content. There's also a comment about PvP. I can't stop playing PvP because okay, everything is completed in 4 hours of something, which is totally not true. Um, there was so much hype before the release of this expansion. It released a hard to feel anything on Final Fantasy XIV and the new expansion. Was the expansion worth that amount of hype? It was, and it still is. But then again, people make so much, like, people make such a big deal about the MSQ content as being like the only type of content that when you finish the MSQ, you didn't like, a lot of people just don't look at the other things. Like, I recently started doing all the side quests within the Endwalker zones, and these side quests, like, a lot of them, in my opinion, are worthy of being within the MSQ because there are so many little stories and breadcrumbs about the characters that we know, and some just kind of tie-ups to the stories that we wondered how they ended up, or a breadcrumb about some about an origin of a character that we know and love. It's so rich, and the content is so well done and so well written. And if only people would see the game and everything released within the expansion as the entirety of the content and not just go through the MSQ and say, oh, there's nothing to do. Yeah, there is. You're just not seeing it as content because everyone is just so focused on this one main big thing like the MSQ. But MSQ is not everything. Sorry about the rant, but...
Now, I've responded to some of these comments in the past, but as we get closer to 6.2, their voices have intensified. So I figured instead of answering one by one, I'll make a video, I'll answer everything at one go, so I'll just point people to the video in the future. Now, I wouldn't read all the hateful comments. Let me read out the parts and the accusations around there not being enough content in Final Fantasy XIV. And obviously the names are censored for their own good. A certain someone said that I couldn't stop playing PvP Crystalline Conflict because the 6.1 basically had no content. I finished everything in 4 hours or something. This is totally not enough content, although the irony here is that I was enjoying playing Crystalline Conflict, and I think that's content. So there's some irony here, and we'll be talking about this in a bit. Another someone...
Like, content isn't just necessarily something that the developers create for you to go through or read through or whatever. Like, I bet if people are hungry for lore and good games and good content, they should probably not focus solely on Final Fantasy story, assuming they've completed all the MSQ, all of the side stories, and all of the regions, and all of the raids, and all of the puzzles and secret quests and whatnot. So once they've completed all of that, they should go and play other Final Fantasy games, which also have a rich story about the characters that they do know, if they're so hungry for the content that they haven't even touched. Like, content isn't just something served to you. Content is also something you create. Like he said, content is also Crystalline Conflict, where you actually play the game and you create the content by joining the queue with other people and making something out of it. It doesn't necessarily have to be a visual novel for you for that to be called content. Sorry, I'm getting upset.
Says, the more money and popularity, the less content we seem to get. In this other comment, it says the game is so dead right now, content comes out, we blow through it so fast and there's nothing to do. Content should take time to go through. He should probably try the critically criticized time-gated mechanics in World of Warcraft. Time-gated content that you can't blow through. Maybe you'll understand how frustrating that is. And you think it's just YouTube comments. It's also in the Final Fantasy XIV general forums, as you guys can see from the background of the text. And I quote, "Where's the..."
There's so much to work towards. It's just that I feel like people are not even curious enough to try and look for something to work towards. Do you know how many dedicated fishermen there are trying to catch rare fish and trying to get these achievements where they need like 1 million or 3 million fishing points or whatever to get the rare pets or something? Like, you just need to do a little bit of research. You have to be at least somewhat curious about the game that you're playing if you want to be playing the game, because you will find something to do. Raids are not everything. Just because everyone knows what raids are and that they're there doesn't mean that that's the only content out there.
long-lasting content. With reference to the patch 6.15 content, the Tataru quest, the Omega quest, this person says, I completed both in about an hour and a half. So where exactly is all these new long-lasting content? We still have to wait for what? July or August for 6.2? Question.
July is in 2 weeks. What do you mean?
And I think you guys might enjoy this. And I quote, World of Warcraft sucks right now, but if I chose to subscribe right now, I would still have plenty to do every day or week. Whether that stuff is actually fun to do or not may be another story, but it's still there. Now keep in mind this comment because we'll be coming back.
It's like, I might not be wanting to have fun. I might just want to have a bunch of chores and I want stuff to do, but I'm so addicted to the idea of having chores and having a different job within a game that Final Fantasy sucks because it's not whipping me into the content that I have to be playing to stay relevant.
Do it in this video, but you guys get the point. And so today, I like to discuss this topic. Before we jump right in, do consider subscribing to the channel if you like the content. We broke 60,000 subscribers with your help. I really appreciate your support. First thing first, I don't think it's a fair statement to say that Final Fantasy XIV has no content, especially if you choose not to do certain types of content.
And yeah, people complain about the fact that there's like no content, but have they done the relic grinds? Like, if you want something unfun but rewarding to do that will last you months, go get your weapons!
If you want to go off on the very deep hardcore end of things, you can be raiding. Not only at a savage level, you can do it at an ultimate level. Most statics are still progging through the Dragon Song Ultimate, which many people have dubbed as one of the best ultimates in many years. And if that's not good enough, you can also go back and do the old ultimates, which by the way still gives you really good rewards. The weapons have a timeless look. Those shiny glamours can be used for many years to come. Definitely worth putting in effort to get them. By the way, as a quick point, raiding is what I think a lot of people use to stay in touch with their friends in the game. They log in at least once a week. It's a predefined hours in the week, and they log on, they have a good banter with their friends and their static. Now you might say, well, raiding is not my cup of tea. I don't really like to socialize with people. Aha, then there's a lot of other content that is solo play. You can be a collector. You can collect minions, tons of them. You can collect glamour. You can forge the best looking glamour plates for yourself. Some of which have very obscure pieces that requires you to farm a certain dungeon or go to the gold saucer and get some work done. And guess what? After that, you can spend so much time on G-pose figuring out how to take the perfect picture for your Warrior of Light. There's so many positions, so many camera angles.
This is all, like, I see the sense in this and I agree with all of this, but if someone doesn't want to play the game, they just don't want to play the game. It's like I keep comparing like MMORPGs to relationships, but I think that there's a lot of like similar things in it. Relationships can be a wonderful thing. You can have a partner who's there with you every day. You could be going on dates, you can take walks, you can have these just really romantic moments, outings. You could be doing anything. You could just be watching, movies and TV shows, eating and baking food together and just having fun. But having a person next to you isn't necessarily enough for you to be wanting to do things with that person, especially if, like, let's remember this last comment about this guy who said that if I subscribe to WoW, I would still have things to do. Like, obviously this person would be in a position where they want a different partner, even though that partner might be, I don't know, slightly abusive and not really the right fit for them or whatever. They're still at the point where they are not happy with what they have. Like, in order to be in this kind of relationship, in order to be playing a certain MMO, you have to be wanting to play that particular MMO. If you don't want to be playing that MMO, you're not really going to find anything within it to want to work towards. And that's just a sad fact. These people, like people who make comments like this, they just don't want to be playing Final Fantasy XIV. That's it.
Different kinds of lighting you can use. For the more advanced users, you would even dabble into color theory and using filters and all these things. But I'm not done, there's more. There's a whole triple triad mini game within the Gold Saucer that you can collect all the cards for, which will reward you a really rare mount. And speaking about mounts, have you thought about collecting mounts? All the different mounts from the different EX trials, all of which comes with their very own OST. When you ride the mount, You can get involved in fates, some of which rewards you really cool glamour or mounts. Or you can go off on the deep end to do Heaven on High or Palace of the Dead. And oh, I forgot to mention there's also PvP that is very popular recently, especially Crystalline Conflict. Again, you might say, well, I don't want to play multiplayer. Well, there's crafting too, and there's professions. You can go fishing, you can...
Like I said, there's just a big difference between there not being any content and there not being any content that you want to do. There is content. It's just an undeniable fact. If you log in, if you keep complaining about these things, if you log in and if you still have a ton of side quests, a ton of things that you haven't collected or done or whatever, if all of this content is undiscovered for you, that means that you just don't want to be doing that content. And for as long as there's a number of these things that you haven't done, which is called content, you can't be going around saying these things.
Can make money off the market board, and then you can use your money and figure out how to decorate the dream home of your own. And you can say, well, I don't own a home because I'm unlucky with the lottery system. Well, you can get an apartment. You can practice in the apartment. And after doing all those things, if you're still bored, you can learn new jobs. Heck, you can even role play with them. And if that's not good enough, there's still Eureka, there's Posture. And oh, by the way, did I mention treasure hunts? A fun way to make money. Look, folks, I doubt there's many people, only a handful of people probably has all the achievements in the game. It is unfair to say something has no content when you choose not to do the content. And by the way, I totally respect the fact that some people don't like certain types of content. And there's nothing wrong with it, it's all personal preference. Some people just don't like raiding, some people don't like PvP. That's completely fine. The more important question is, have you really given it a fair shot? And I feel like a lot of people, they don't bother moving out of their comfort zone to try new content because they are apprehensive about...
If your mindset is like, I like this certain tiny type of thing, but I want that type of thing to be eternal and to occupy all of my time. And if that thing isn't eternal, like let's say MSQ or some small thing that you like to do within the game, you can't really be going around and complaining about paying for a subscription or playing the game if you don't like 99% of the game. That would be different for someone, let's say someone really enjoys playing Triple Triad and they're paying the sub and they're just logging in so that they could play Triple Triad. That's fine and that's awesome and that's great, but those people always have something to do. However, if they happen to farm all the cards and if they get their rare mount or whatever that they're after a while, except for like the bi-weekly tournaments at the Gold Saucer, there's not really much to do when it comes to Triple Triad unless you're organizing tournaments like with your friends or whatever. And you could be like, okay, well, you know, the game sucks because it's not providing enough content for me. There's all this content that you don't care for. Well, maybe MMORPGs aren't really for you because MMORPGs, good MMORPGs are theme parks with a little bit of everything for everyone. So if you can't adapt yourself to do like different types of content and enjoy it, maybe you shouldn't be playing a game that is based on you paying for a monthly subscription, because paying for a monthly subscription is kind of, I don't know, like by doing that, I assume you're getting yourself into multiple pieces of content. It's like ordering a big cake from a pastry shop and only like eating like the little chocolate crumbs that are on top of the cake. Then you shouldn't be buying the cake. You should go to the store and just get the crumbs.
What lies in the road ahead. You know, they don't know who they'll meet in the party finder. They might be nasty to them. They don't want to get into crafting because it's like learning new things. They don't want to try PvP because it's all very competitive. They don't really want to join FCs because, well, they don't want to interact with other people because maybe they had a bad experience socially in the game. There's many reasons why people feel that way, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. But I guess the question to ask yourself at this point, if there's content in the game you haven't tried and you immediately conclude there's no content, doesn't sound very fair. But I think if you're paying a subscription for the game, you definitely owe it to yourself to at least try. Try it for an hour, try the new activity for an hour before concluding that you don't like something. Most of the time, if people are honest with themselves about why they're not trying certain types of content, things they haven't done before, I think the honest answer is that they're actually burnt out, which brings me to my next point. Let's face it, variety is indeed the spice of life. When you force yourself to do the same thing every day and expecting a different outcome, I think...
Honestly, this is like this kind of behavior is sounding to me like I don't know, something that I face within like my, I guess my country and like wherever I live, like when people from around here, especially like the people who, let's say, would belong to I don't know, a lower class or maybe lower middle class or something, like when they go on vacations with their children, like every time I hear these people talking, like let's say they go to on a vacation to Greece, which is not too far away from here, and where most people from Serbia will go on a vacation. They always argue with their kids about the kids not spending enough time in the water. Like sometimes you'll just have kids chilling like on their towels or whatever, and the parents would be like, "You're not taking advantage of your time while we're here. You know, in 5 days you'll be home, and there will be like no more coast, no more. I don't know. It's like they have this idea of how their children should be best taking advantage of their time at the coast. Since there's water and obviously there's no water at home, they should automatically be spending 100% of their time in that water because that water is kind of paid for, like that's why you're there. But you can't be spending the entire day in the water. You sometimes just want to chill in the sun. Sometimes you don't want to be in the sun at all. Sometimes you just want to be in your room, and that's also okay. So if you're paying for a game, I'm going to assume that that's not your like last money out of pocket that you're giving to Square Enix. That if you give to Square Enix, you're not going to have anything else to eat. It is an amount of money for entertainment that isn't really that bad on a monthly level. People spend a lot more than like 12 or $15 or whatever on entertainment. When you think about it, your entertainment on a monthly level is very cheap. That doesn't mean that you have to be logging in every day and doing the things that you don't enjoy just so that you can feel like you're like taking advantage of the fact that you're subscribed to the game. It's okay to take a few days break if you need one. It's okay to just log in for half an hour and do a dungeon or two or whatever. Your entertainment is not expensive. If your entertainment feels expensive to you, and objectively it really isn't that bad, I think you should maybe just step back and figure out ways to first just like cover every other need that you have that's making it feel like $12 a month for your well-being, for your entertainment, and for your overall mental state, and just something to go into and have fun with, for it to be less expensive. So maybe you just need to figure out ways to be comfortable with your other life circumstances instead. And I understand, listen, I'm coming from a country where 1200 okay, 1200 RSDs will be around, I don't know, 13, 14 euro, $15 or whatever. For $15 in here, I could do, for a single person, I could do a weekly survival food shopping. Like I can't go lavish with it, but for $15 I could be I could be eating for a week if I really have to. That amount of money over here is worth a little bit more than somewhere else, where you can't even like go to McDonald's and get one decent meal for like, I don't know, $15 or whatever. Like I'm coming from a place where that amount of money is still worth more, and I don't know as many people around here who are willing to pay for a monthly subscription for an MMO, because that money doesn't feel like it's worth it to them. It is more expensive over here because the standard is just different, which means that technically, if I'm making this point, that people who live around here would have to get themselves even more comfortable to be able to play an MMO with a monthly subscription that is equal for everyone. Like if we were talking about standards, our subscription like around here should probably cost $3 or $4 a month when it comes to the standard, but it doesn't. It doesn't. That's just the way life is, and we shouldn't expect for it to cost that much. This point probably went a lot longer than what I initially expected it to be. But I just kind of wanted to make it clear. It is objectively not more expensive. You just need to be okay with the fact that sometimes even entertainment is something that you can take a break from.
I think Albert Einstein defined that as insanity. It's the same thing in Final Fantasy XIV. If you log on every day, hoping that your experience today will be better without doing anything different, you will definitely not find your answer there. And over time, you become disillusioned, become jaded, and you think that there might be nothing in store for me in this game anymore. But the truth is, sometimes you need to take a break, like what Yoshi P says. For the people who follow me, you know I've been playing Elden Ring at the start of the year. And what's the first thing I said when I came back to Final Fantasy XIV on stream? I said that Final Fantasy XIV looks so different. And mind you, this is after like a 1-week break of playing Elden Ring No Life. I said Final Fantasy XIV's color palette looks so cheerful, and I even asked chat whether they made graphical improvements to the way the text is rendered, because it looked way sharper to me. The truth is nothing has changed. I merely took a step back from the game, I gained some new perspective, and when I re-log in Final Fantasy XIV after a break, it feels familiar yet different at the same time. That's the power of taking a break, gaining some perspective. It's completely okay to take a break. And then naturally I know the counter argument that some comments have is that, well, actually, if Yoshi P and team did more content in the game, if they produce content more quickly, then I don't have to take a break because there will always be.
These people who say that, I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that they have a lot of time on their hands. For someone who is living a busy life, who is a parent, or someone who works full-time, or someone who has other commitments in their life, there is enough content to last you for months, if not even years. So it's kind of unfair to be this loud part of the community who also has enough time to visit forums and write on forums all the time and say these things. Even as a content creator, I don't even find time to visit forums, let alone sit there and rant about the game. I only, like, if I have enough time to play the game, I consider myself grateful and happy to even have enough time for that during the day. Take a step back and understand that if you had a little bit more going on in your life that you might not be having, you might not be making those points, because the game is well balanced for people who are also living busy lives. And realistically, I'm never going to get things done in Final Fantasy XIV just because of how busy I am. And I could be maining Final Fantasy XIV as a content creator, and I could just be no-lifing it so that I can complete everything, and then what?
Content. Some even go to the lengths of saying that, hey, Yoshi P and team is actually artificially stretching out the content, drip feeding us the content so that we will continue to stay subscribed. The truth is, if they really wanted to maximize your subscription fees, if they really wanted to keep you in the game for the purposes of profit maximization, Yoshi P would have never encouraged people to take breaks from Final Fantasy XIV, period. Like, some of the responses and comments I've read is actually pretty incredible.
It's better to have a community who will periodically be coming back to the game happier than having a community who will just stay in there and be unhappy all the time. This is how MMOs are different from relationships. If you're in a relationship, you're kind of expected to take it a little easy and to, be happy and try to make another person happy. You're not really expected to feel trapped after spending a month in a relationship or whatever, and ask for either more, engaging and interesting content from your partner, or wanting to take a break because of that. Like, that's how MMOs are different. You have the liberty to go and come back to the game because this is in fact not a relationship.
Example, this forum post. The person is suggesting that there are other MMORPGs like World of Warcraft that is in a very bad spot, but at least they have repeatable content. And let me address this as my next point. What the person is trying to say is that he or she is actually willing to accept a bad gameplay experience simply because he or she is able to whittle away time by doing something they might not necessarily enjoy, but at least there's something to do. And maybe in their head it's because they justify that, well...
Dude, I'm probably gonna come out as rude for saying this, but I think they are really bored. Because once you start getting really busy in life, then you understand how valuable your time is. And you're not willing to just go around in circles doing the same thing all the time. That's when I stopped playing Hearthstone. And I'm not trying to offend any of my friends who still play Hearthstone, but for me, it started feeling like a pointless, like ladder on Hearthstone started feeling like a really pointless thing to try and do every single day to get that, I don't know, 60% win rate to get myself to legend or whatever. And instead of that, I started playing more like, I don't know, singular arena runs or whatever, something that I can complete within a certain time frame that isn't the same always, like playing the same deck or whatever. And at the same time, it feels more interesting and more engaging. And I only discovered this honestly when I became a parent myself. That's when I realized that hey, my time is valuable and I want to spend my time on something that is actually fun and fulfilling.
Well, I paid a subscription for this MMORPG. At least the MMORPG is keeping me busy. But the question is, are you really enjoying yourself? If you're gonna do something that you know is in a bad gameplay spot, does it really make sense to force yourself to be doing this? Even though it seems to consume your time. Because if you want to do so, there's a cheaper and even free alternative. You can basically paint the wall and watch the paint dry, or you can watch the grass grow. Because on both sides, they are both not optimal entertaining experiences. But yet one is free, so technically you should do that. I feel like a lot of the people who come to Final Fantasy XIV, they have this
I love how Quasi found a perfectly nice way to say go touch some grass.
conceived notion that they are trained by other MMORPGs to think like that, which is, oh, an MMORPG when I hit max level, there must be daily repeatable grinds that I can do. The equivalent of this in Final Fantasy XIV will be something like, oh, to gear up my character, I need to do daily roulettes every day for a certain currency, and this currency can then be turned into a certain vendor that gives me an upgrade stone, and there's like 10 levels of upgrade stone for every single slot in my inventory, so that gives me a reason to do the roulettes every day. That way, I'm not capped out on gear progression that quickly. But as someone who has played World of Warcraft for 10 years, I can tell you this is artificial progression. It's not real progression. It's basically artificial time gating. Yoshi P and team's philosophy is they don't want to time gate content because that is not sustainable in the long run. People will eventually churn. They will realize that this is not fun and people leave. Just look at what's happening.
I think Yoshi P and the dev team have realized that most people are not disappointed in Final Fantasy XIV and the way Final Fantasy XIV is built. And I think they are fighting very hard to keep loyal to keep those people, those customers, those players loyal by not disappointing them with disrespecting their time.
It's happening with World of Warcraft. External systems for many years, enough said. So they're really front loading the content to you. And if you complete the content fast, you have 100% right to stop your subscription, take a break, go play something else. That's completely okay. In fact, they're encouraging you to do so. The last main point I'll mention here, I do not know of any MMORPG community that is as accepting as Final Fantasy XIV when it comes to playing other games externally to Final Fantasy XIV. In fact, so many FF14 friends of mine are playing other video games right now. And
as a content creator, I only recently discovered that I can and I have the liberty to do variety. I even started a new YouTube channel for all my variety content when I started maining Final Fantasy XIV as both a game that I enjoy playing and the game that I'm creating content in. Not because the content is lacking or because there's not enough of it, but because the game is letting me breathe. Like, even if I spend 2 or 3 hours a day doing my roulettes or whatever, like, I still have time during the week to, complete I don't know, a game that is like 10 or 20 hours long or something like that, that I can make content for, that I can enjoy, while while Final Fantasy is still making me breathe. Like, I'm in no rush to level all my jobs to 90. Most of them are, but not all of them, and I'm working towards it, and I'm not feeling pressured because the game just doesn't work in that way. And it's just such an amazing thing to feel allowed to play other games as well. I wasn't huge on playing other games or other MMOs. When I used to play WoW, I was only loyal to World of Warcraft, but I realized that World of Warcraft was occupying so much of my time with these progression systems and everything that I couldn't even dream of completing like an adventure game or dipping my toes into another MMO to just see what it's like. It's just kept me caged in these like systems and whatnot. Like it never let me even play other games. I tried for the longest time. I was trying to play Hearthstone and World of Warcraft at the same time. But by the time I would finish my Hearthstone, I don't know, daily quests, and I would do some ladder, like I wouldn't have time to do everything that I needed to do in World of Warcraft on a daily basis. Not even the games within the same company allow each other to coexist within someone's day if they don't have a full day to play games. It's incredible.
And they are having fun amongst themselves. They're playing V-Rising, they're all looking forward to the new Monster Hunter Rise, and they see the content lull between patches as the perfect way to catch up on previous video games they have missed out. For example, when Endwalker was launched, it was the end of the year. So many new titles were released then. Maybe you were so obsessed with the MSQs you didn't get to play some of them. Now is the time to go back and work on the backlog. And when the time comes for 6.2 to be released, Island Sanctuary rolls around, new features in the game to be tried out, we can all return to Eorzea at your own pace. And it will still feel like home. That's the thing about Final Fantasy XIV. It's liberating. It doesn't hold you back. It doesn't anchor you to...
From the perspective of a content creator, you have to understand also that we feel it too. Content creators are in fact hit by the fact that people come and go. When I used to create content for World of Warcraft, my income and my channel growth and everything that kind of was tied into it was growing, but I realized that it was growing constantly. It was growing in a straight line. It didn't really have like ups and downs. But I realized over time that I don't feel good about that growth, because that growth is rolling off the back of the people who consume my content, because they are just forever consumed with this fact, this fact that the game is just keeping them trapped in it in a way with so many of these things that are either hard or boring or impossible to do quickly or whatever. So I was making those guides, and I felt like those guides were being searched and watched throughout the whole year, which is something that I discovered in Final Fantasy is just not the case. And this is my first expansion, like my first big expansion that I was there on time for the MSQ, like for Endwalker. And as a content creator, I did feel a dip in the amount of players who are playing through the the amount of people who would watch my videos. And I think that a lot of other content creators are feeling the same thing right now, which is unfortunate for content creators who are only dedicating themselves to Final Fantasy, and they are still going through growing pains like myself, who don't have maybe a big community who is going to be there every day regardless of what's going on. It's a hard thing, but it's also a liberating thing, because as a content creator, it's actually allowing me to do variety and to create content for other games and to be discovered by people who also play other games, which is a blessing in disguise, really.
To the game, it doesn't demand that you log in every day, and that is liberating. Capitalize on that. Before Final Fantasy XIV, I never knew that kind of freedom. I was always on a hamster wheel. If I don't log on today, what will happen? If I don't log on today, I'll lose my spot in the raid. I was driven to log in out of fear that I will fall behind. Don't you want to log into an MMORPG where you actually look forward to playing? Where your primary motivation is a place of positive emotions rather than negative emotions?
Yeah.
And for some of these haters who say there's no content in the game, and maybe that's your answer, you should try other MMORPGs.
Like World of Warcraft, especially during those last few months, was nothing but stress for me. My child was he was almost 2 at the time. He wasn't even 2 when I was raiding Mythic and WoW. And I remember that being the most stressful time ever. I was raiding Mythic, and I was also trying to stream Mythic, and we were living in an environment that wasn't completely friendly towards my job and my streaming and everything, and it was frowned upon. And at the same time, I had a small child whose bedtime was between like 7 and 8, and it was always just so hard to make sure that I put my child to bed properly, not rushed but properly, before I log into to raid. Our raids would be starting at 7:30 p.m. and that's when I would rush to start my stream because I didn't have time to do it before. And and if I wasn't logged in at 7 because that's something that our guild leader was requiring us to do. If I wasn't there at 7, I would lose my spot. And from 7 to 7:30, you were also required to be there just to answer any potential questions that would pop up on voice. So I would be there trying to figure out my stream and just set everything up. And at the same time, like I always felt like he was checking whether or not we're still there because he would be asking random people random questions to make sure that they're not AFKing or something like that. Or sometimes there would be trades going on or whatever. It was just a really stressful environment, and I felt like my family dynamic was being disrupted because of that. And that's why I decided to stop raiding like 2 or 3 months after deciding to do mythic raiding. And it was just like I thought it was just mythic raiding, but then I realized that the game just revolves around all these systems and all these check marks that you have to put, next to your name or your, list of things to do before even starting the raid.
And maybe you will see that maybe you have been taking Final Fantasy XIV for granted. You might think that Quasi is crazy and always talking about World of Warcraft being bad. But maybe you played World of Warcraft, you will now look back on Final Fantasy XIV and say, okay, I actually like the way they roll out content better than World of Warcraft. Maybe that's a solution. And let me remind you again, the grass is not always greener on the other side. Sometimes the grass is dead on the other side. I came from a world where sometimes I have to wait for more than 1 year, yes, more than 1 year for a major content patch to land in World of Warcraft. And over here between 6.1 and 6.2 is only a gap of 4 months, roughly, and people are already losing their minds and complaining about this, which is baffling. It's easy to complain about things in a vacuum, but when you take a step back and gain some perspective, you might actually finally see it differently. I know it's a contentious topic, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. With that said, a very big thank you for helping us cross 60,000 subscribers on this channel. What a massive milestone this is for this community. If you like the content on this channel, make sure to click the button in the middle of the screen to subscribe to the channel. Help us march towards 100,000 subscribers. I would really appreciate that.
That's insane. Again, huge congrats on reaching 60k. And if you guys haven't subbed to Quasi yet, make sure to do so. This was a really, really good video, very insightful. And I'm actually glad that I spent a decent amount of time commenting on it because he's made some excellent points. And I'm hoping that this video will, put people's mind at ease, at least, maybe with gaining some, I don't know, knowledge on the perspective of people who have seen worse, like myself, like Quasi, like many other, people who just, know that grass indeed is not greener on the other side. But anyway, thanks for watching this video as well, and I'll see you next time.